traditions, all the further lineages of the Drukpa Kaji eventually evolved. They all go back to Götsangpa.
Yawa Gosambagi Namtar, but Namtar Kashiore, Yawa Gosambagi Namtar Kashi, Loma Tashi Kondashibana, Shingi Loma, some Yimiko Mambu Juniorba, and Maritat, because Toba Randanyamba Yangu, but Tushu Randanyamba, Ugenba, Sheji Randanyamba, Chigaru, Mugu Randanyamba, Nerimba, Sandabu, Loma Sam Yimiko Junior, the name of Makuna Samaya, Chigi, Dikarshu, Namtar, Mambu Nangusari, the name of Zamala, Nejag Namtardi, Chigi, Rasa, Geltang. Dechen doji sing and Zebe Namtarti Namba. The dig in Namtarti, Yogo Namtarti, some the subject of Chuduki Gonis Sungsha.
Chalama Dechen doja,
Chudu. Divided into 6 divisions.
Yes.
16, sorry, not 6.
16.
Yeah,
Chudu, last one. When it comes to Jawa Götsangpa, there is a great many different biographies which have been written about his life by his individual students. He had a great number of very devoted students, and several of them took it upon themselves to write a biography. The one that Rinpoche himself has seen, that he himself has been able to study, was composed by the master who is known as Gyaltangpa Dechen Dorje. And that particular biography by Gyaltangpa Dechen Dorje of Jawa Götsangpa is divided into 16 chapters, one could say.
Judu the Saman Lavitana, that in Bedit Karsam Godograva, that in the Judu of the Changa de Pasha, that Judu Bagin Nansenle, and it Talenkapsu Tamati, Judupala, and it Kapsu, and it Yawa Gosangpa, Himalaya regular candes paper race, Lavina, and it Shangshungi Yul. Shangshungi Yul Peri, Shangshungi Yul Gugi, Ne Majene, Ani, Karshal Pevere, Karsha.
Shangshung Gugi Ne Karsha. Now, of course, we do not have the time to go into much detail, particularly not into the details of 16 chapters of this sacred biography of Götsangpa. We could very well, for our particular intents and purposes here, leave aside the first 15 chapters and simply concentrate on the final 16th chapter, in which it says quite clearly that Götsangpa, in the course of his travels, eventually moved west. He came to the country, or to the region in Tibet, which is known as Shangshung. From there he proceeded to Guge, and from there he eventually came to the region which is known also still nowadays as Karsha.
That in Almapi on the Sabangarazuna Sintas pay on Mare, Sigi, Nyasadimgi, the Nichigi, to Nyamshen Nangi, the Ganashin to Kangla Kanduki, Chigi Dujakawat and Demba Namla, and Chigi, Chigi, Karasova, Simber Zenia, and Nangi Nangi paper in the Tagasi, Pepsi, Mariva, the audience paper is Karshal.
When we think of Götsangpa having traveled to Karsha all this way, moving ever further west, it is not the way like we would travel quickly from point A to B, but he did so in a very slow manner, in a very leisurely manner, and wherever he was asked to deliver teachings and instructions and so forth, he did so. So he very slowly, gradually made his way to Karsha.
Tini Karshala, Tini Gandola Sesala, Gandola.
The Sajagami.
Tini Semula, Dharma Muti Chavega, and Rangjungi Chuden Yoba.
Dharma Muti,
Sheva Rangjungi Chuden, me Sway Shava Maimba, Rangjungi Chuden Yoba.
Oh, the Dharma Muti,
Jibare, Rangjungi Chuden, the Ramutis Sungsha. Tini Karsa, Digi, and a chok shila, and a Moduki Sing Yoba. Tini Jigi Power than Kando Tamjiki Jingi Labene, Tini Najur Pamu, Pomoso, Tini Juba Mando Suganet, in the years Sunsha Karsala. The Yore, and the Yore, and the Jayore. That the Dharmamudi should enter Jami doing around to Matab and Nawal Jay Marba, Yanjing Hosut and Aran, Surt of Chenani, Yagapeji Tanda Karsa, the Azo Atikarsa, Tuchen Chilbupa. 아니 지기 대쇼 거네 상계세게 내 지기다 리딘데 지어래 디레스 당한으로 리마시 동마라 봐 디네 레스 람난다 멘도신 랭고스 제한테 요 말에 이네네 간돌라 생한테 단데 제야 요래
and the drupshin jebo kon sa the sa the drupne the sa the chot chibare
chibare ure da ri chibare
negaming gandola
chodengi la kalsati dharmamuti
laso when now who are we talking about? Götsangpa. When Götsangpa eventually came to Karsha, he came to a very particular place, a very sacred spot in the region of Karsha, which is known as Gandola. And in this particular place of Gandola, which is situated in Karsha, there was the self-arisen stupa, which is known under the name of Dharmamuti. This place exists till the present day. It is not so that we ourselves, with our impure outlook, could truly perceive the stupa, but it is said that still this place is intact. When Götsangpa came there, he found this self-arisen stupa on the four sides of which trees had grown, which were called trees of accomplishment, and it is said that this place was blessed by all the Dakas and Dakinis. It is as such a place that is very much similar to the place where the Indian Mahasiddha Gantapa, Jebupa as he's called in Tibetan, where he achieved realization. Also that mountain, that region, that place is supposed to be still existing. However, it is not visible to the naked eye. It is not visible to people with ordinary, impure outlook.
Karshala shu ani chicken rodin kyang nawares karshala shu ani rodin kyang tanda karshala yawa gosang ba rodin kyang naware tega nasika karshala tada yawa gosang ba ki trune dupu dinde yare dupu tada lama gombas chen tanda karsang ras kungar mu che ku goma gi shu sai den sati ani karsa di lama gombas chen tanda dupu yare teni di phajo dila yordong gombas chen yang 고상박이 두부 요래 델레스 두 고상박이 샵제라 요래 디네 끼라 양 디네 파조 패드 잠바들레스 디네 쿠란 속에 셰기는 세계도 첨다라고 경매로 샵이 제니 요래 샵이 제니 요래 지금 지금 네스페어데 샵제드네 세 요래 이제
사전에 열동고
나 열동 또나 열동 군바서 그래 이나 다 겨우 고상박이 좀 약사 군서도 난게래
It is said that Götsangpa then remained at this place in Karsha and that he proceeded to bring about the benefit of many beings for the duration of his stay there. And indeed, even nowadays, there are still various sites associated with Götsangpa. At that particular place, in the vicinity of this place, there is a monastery which is known as Yeldong Gompa, where he also was active and where he often used to walk and where footprints of his are visible. So this entire region was frequented by Götsangpa for a long time, and he was very active there for the benefit of many beings.
But those, when you say monastery, don't imagine something very big structure. It's just a small cave. It's just a small cave, and there's a small retreat center only. It's not a big structure, that you have placed.
Yeah, and I also forgot to say, I'm sorry, that in this place also the retreat caves where Götsangpa practiced, where he meditated, they're still situated there and they're still visible, and they have been used until recent times also by subsequent masters who have lived in these regions.
The Inayang Jirangri Repatang, Tangsang Repig and Namtana, into those ten Sungsha, into Sabataya, the Imbalmuzi Chevra.
These places, however, are not mentioned in the biography of Götsangpa himself. However, subsequent masters who appeared after him, such as Ranrig Repa, such as Taksang Repa, etc., they mentioned the existence of these places in their biographies and the association with Götsangpa.
Tatine Karshe Yulne, Ani, Rodinkiawanang. Dine Karshane Chenia, Karsa, the Tanda Himachal Chambe, district chamber union, and a union Yagel, the Jalendara, but to him now. Jalendara, you want to Shibima, Jalendaras, Tanda Karsan, the geology like that. on depot to Pevna, the Pevzamata, the Dendron can pay in Jirwa.
Unish touching.
Unistashigil, Jalendra.
Götzongpa did not forever remain in this particular region of Kacha. However, he then proceeded to eventually travel the entire region. And it is said that the entire region is made up out of 21 counties, one could say. Like 21 counties, 21 smaller regions.
24 sacred places.
24, not 21, 24 places which are associated to be sacred to Chakrasamvara. Right. The final of them, which he then eventually reached, being named Jalendara. Of course, there are a whole lot of stories associated with all of these different countries, all of these different places which he traversed, which he traveled to, and where he practiced. However, unfortunately, we do not have the time to go into any details concerning these places. Also, if we were to go through all of that, Rinpoche is afraid we might eventually get bored.
그래서 디 똑바로한다냐 뭐 우견 봐서야지 말이 좋다. 그래다 우견 봐 배버리. 우견 바당 아니 지랑지래 봐. 우견 봐. 우견 바당 아니 장지래 봐. 지랑지래 봐. 니 아니 림버전네 양 히말라야기 유도 아니야 디가마시 템바 배웠나 그래스.
Eventually then, after Götzongpa, two of his main students further spread the teaching of the Drukpa lineage, the teachings of Götzongpa in particular, throughout the Himalayan regions. And these main students of his were known as Ujinpa and Rangrikrepa.
gerre pepsongs sen midin zu kerada yonggesere gerre pepsongs sen ti kongi nga gerre mares nga kongi loma go sang bares sen sungores sungu jungsons kain sana ting elang kong du shibe ima tini rap nam kasa loma tanda ramring thasum du chene ani kongi lengsum nang we kabgi ti kabla pep chari yosere ba tini inu sama gewa go sang bade tangbo insa mare ta tini inu sama lo gege jagi nga lang ram su tonji bande drupa ki tembati tala ram su ti gega Himalaya region na pe kyap charo imre.
These students of Götzongpas, they were known to have also achieved great realization, insight and realization. Even at the time of Götzongpa itself, when he traveled somewhere, the people would gather and they would say, "Oh, Jarepa," which means Tsangpa Jare, has arrived. So great was his fame, so magnificent he was. To which he then always humbly had to reply, No, I'm not Jarepa, I'm not Tsangpa Jare, I'm just a student of his. However, his fame, his accomplishment, his knowledge was so great and had spread so far ahead of him that he was vastly and very widely renowned master who was celebrated greatly wherever he arrived.
아니 대체수 아니 용들을 붙이 구청당부 사제원 왕상부기 아니 로마 그봐 당상제바 아니 나왕교수 중인데 아니 그래서 다디양 아니 소마 밤당 강 디셀 소반네 아니 지기 두슈기 저반낭기 낭기 양 국회당 지기 국회당 들이 상승균에 아니 그래서 샤람라스에서 주세요. 샤람라스 전에 군우당 국인이 바로라 디네 마균에 아니 군우를 배발해 군우 단다 샤이율세 샤단 샤소세 우리 샤이율 디바네 마전에 편네 아니 야 림베기 디니 잘렌다라당 잘렌다라로 소바티네 남라니 펩시아스
디 샤람 거서절로 수배분데 디 타산제바 라스. So the lineage then continues onwards through various students until then eventually masters and students until then eventually the first in the lineage of the Yongdzin Rinpoches appears. The first Yongdzin Rinpoche was known under the name of Latsewa Ngawang Sangpo, and among his students, the main one, or one of the most, the one who was to prove to become the most influential one, was the famous Taktsang Repa Ngawang Gyatso, Ngawang Jatso, or Taksang Repa as he was commonly known, he also traveled in these regions a great deal until he finally came to a place that is known as Sharam, which is situated between Kunu, which is on the Indian side, and the western Tibetan ancient kingdom of Guge.
Sangarla, and to Jen Devajatsu, Shungan Korangi Gumba, the Chexatsubu Yosarwa, Satsubus and Hagura, Satsubu. Satsubus and 100 until the Mabu Jinang Yoding. Today is about Del Shutney, to Jen Devajatsu, the Sangal Pepper down, Tasan Reba, Nawangas Pepper down, Del Shuron Nans, and I did Gumba de la Satsubu dus, Shuba dancing Hondela, Dawachik Sam, and to Kunsam la Shuni, and it's Andunang.
Eventually, after Taksang Repa, again a great many masters appeared, and there was a further one who was known under the name of Jawa Jamso. He became very famous because he eventually came to a place in Sanskar which was known as a very turbulent place, where the influence...
When Taksang Repa arrived in Sanskar, then Devajatsu requested Taksang Repa.
Oh, that's so. Yeah. I get confused here. Apparently it was Taksang Repa himself who arrived in Sanskar, and this master, this Mahasiddha, Drupchen Jawa Janso, he requested Taksang Repa to pacify a certain place, which was known to be very turbulent, which was known to be under the influence of lots of gods and demons, and therefore a very difficult place to stay, a very difficult place to do anything. Taksang Repa conceded, and then he eventually stayed for several months in retreat in this particular place, and he managed to subdue the earth spirits, the gods and the demons of this particular place, thus pacifying it.
Narupaki Purbares chat and two Shabbat in the Jayore. Then the Rastu to publication, deep down the part in the Dua publication, deep Casa, deep to your dinner and the Jayore. That machine Sangal Donor in Jay, the Muslim shoe. Zungul, Sangal, Narupaki to
There is one particular place. Another place which was visited by Taksang Repa while he was in Sanskar is the famous sacred site that is known under the name of Sungkul. Sungkul is a place where Naropa, the great Indian Pandita and Mahasiddha Naropa had meditated in previous times, and this place is accessible, even though it is rather difficult to get there. In one of the previous Drukpa publications, some of you might in the possession of that one, a picture of this particular cave of Naropa's in this place called Sungkul in Sanskar has been included.
Sesaki Tival Shu, and a gave us singing Namgel down, Lalup de Bucha, Lalup de Bucha, what did you say? Tinejeveres?
Tixe Basco.
Tixe Basgo, that in Labugo, Ladala Pevere. Then Ladal Pevni, Ladala Tomar, and 1,000. Ladala Tomar, and Korangi Gumbataviadi, Lada Wamlilla, only the Chingun singing the Chata race.
Hamlet de Chingun. Eventually, Taksang Repa then proceeded to Ladakh, where he came to places where he also established places which are known as Tikse, Se, Basco, and so forth. But the first place, the first residence or monastery, so to speak, that he established in Ladakh is known as Amle Dechingun, which means monastery.
Himi.
The second one established by Taksang Repa in Ladakh was the famous Hemiskompa.
Ani Karasa Nore or Himi Changchup something Zulakang, Denanglia, Ani, Tawamli Layang, Rodin Mabukang Nasha, that is Pasha, Ani Himila, Ani Karasa, Gendungi Detsuk. 되니 지기 가르쇼래 대초 두주장이 긴고를 당한테는 되게 두바당 되니 라마르 두바기 긴고를 당 미축바다 되는 건보다 되니 라모로 소바 대다들 또 탐제기 되니 틱 둘전 틱거야 둘전 거야 되가 나생기 양 레모로 소바다 탐제 아니 티처서 아니 되지 라렌 쪽낭 대가 나생기 잠들건바 되가 제디건바 단데 잠들서 그래 제디건바다 되가 얼른 되지건바 되스 쪽낭이 아니 받는 두바기 템발라달 두세 Tarwares.
Hemitsunakan, the Hemit
Janjup Samling.
Samling, that's right. Particularly while establishing the great Hemis monastery, he also established the temple, the main shrine that is to the present day known as the Hemis Changjup Samling. He then proceeded to further places where he established further seats and residences, etc., where he then eventually trained himself for a long time, practiced for a long time in the practice of the 62 deity mandala of Chakra Samvara, in the various many practices of the various deity mandalas of the Buddha Akshobhya, and so forth. And this way he established the tradition of these practices, the ways of how to play the musical instruments, how to perform the rituals, how to make the tormas, etc., and so forth, in a very excellent and in a very detailed manner.
아니 드네 양 라달라 지기 샤붕좀 무치 ngawon namge gi shelop choji mungjin pa singandi yang ladal phemni 지기 karsa lonrugi ani den chaya de zoe darshas
choji
mungjin pa ladal phep ani lonrugi lu so dar
kon rugne Eventually, Shabdrung Ngawang Namgyal, who was residing in Bhutan at the time, he sent again one of his main students, who was known under the name of Choji Mungzingpa, to Ladakh, who then further busied himself with the establishment of the practice of all sorts of rituals and proper performance and all the details that are entailed in such practices.
아니 용진 22바 용진 가바 22바야 나달 페베레스
용진 kutingaba
22바
Then eventually the fifth Yongzin Rinpoche, under the name of Yeshe Drukpa, also proceeded to travel to Ladakh.
아니 루진 kuting 두바 칠레싱다야 아니 베이규네 가색제 아니 리메리메기 라달 페 드린 로딩강 독스낭샤스
Also the seventh Jalwang Drukpa, who was known under the name of Chinnashingda, in the course of a very long journey through all sorts of places and sites, eventually also arrived in Ladakh.
하버도 가샬을 단다 제레스 도와주기 꾸지요래 디 우도라 아니 독지요 독 세상 독지디다 지내신데 배우레스 들라요래
디 가샤
파바 제레스기 구도와주도 차두제바
라소
뺑고서
라소 There is a particular place again in the region in the region that is known as Karsha, where there is a temple in which is enshrined a six-armed form of the great compassionate one, Arya Avalokiteshvara or Chenrezi. That one has above itself a golden parasol or umbrella, and that particular one was offered to the Chenrezi statue by the seventh Jalwang Drukpa Chinlishingda. That place is a place that is full of wonders, full of miracles, a place full of blessing and inspiration.
다 가르샤 칸돌링 가르샤라 칸돌링 세도 칸돌사나 남칼라 종은 라기 여러와 칼라 종이 요면 가시 살라 도와 단데 요래
There is another place in Kasha that is known as Kandroling. Kandroling meaning Dakinis. Kandro being the Tibetan term for sky walkers. Even though this place is still there, nowadays the Kandros rather more walk on the ground.
On the ground. 다 티네 다 치수래. 티네 양 두배 때마다 다 디테스 게마체 다 치수 다 티네 두완샤게 시지기 셀롭 두완샤게 시지기 셀롭 아잘라마 생긴지요래 다 아잘라마 생긴 중샤 디기 꿀마체니 아니 지기 군가 템바기엘 생생이다 군가를 못체 구고마대당 아니 지기 누구남게 슈엔당 디네 너부리 못체당 디네 지 가왕 최벨다 지 시랍 상보 지 도지 상보 생에 망보도 된수 탐제 아니 캄라 가샤네 캄라 파 페버레 최슈가 조화를 시작이 시리군들라 대를 로망고 쉬우네 아니 저기 왕다 담가 탐제 아니 분바 강조 출도 톱 디니 소설 룽바르 수페 아니 가샬라 페네 아니 군가를 무치기 가샤 카당고 마생이 차탑
가샤 카당고 마
디니 말에 누르를 무치기 가샤 카당고 마디 차탑 아니 군가를 무치기 단다 공도 쉬면 하신기 라마 금바스 단다 고상바기 둠네 요서 디나라 디니 디 가사 군가를 무치기 차탑 ini dorji sangbu sengen deki chuda gomba chata bare chuda gomba hosel book se to ti chata bare tini ya tuhar muchi ki loma besiring sengen deki ani tanda bogar gomba se gere inju dogar gomba insere tini ki chata ne tida chata ba cham maim ba tel yebe ki loma tamje la chi chajin ka sa ngon rong shi ni cham ba ki ani chajin chudu gi nyemne so ba ne ani temba ge se pe na ores lama nurbu I will repeat the name Lama Kunga, Lama Norbu, and those are the most important disciple of Shakyashiri. Ani?
Yeah, all of these names is very difficult to keep track of. Eventually it then turned out that these lamas, which have just been mentioned, they traveled from Karsha to eastern Tibet to go into the presence of the great master Drukpa Shakyashiri to receive teachings from him. They received transmission teachings in their entirety. They eventually came back to their native country of Karsha, where they practiced these teachings, where they brought about accomplishment and realization in these teachings, where they then established their own residences, their own small monasteries, where they then proceeded to teach their own students. These masters, like Kunga Tempa Gyaltsen, who was the first of the Kunga Rinpoches, etc., they established the practice of what they have learned, what they had studied under Drukpa Shakyashiri in Karsha, and to the present day, the practice of the preliminary practices, the various Yidam practices, such as Varahi and Chakra Samvara, the various perfection process meditations as the 6 doctrines of Naropa, etc., and so forth, are being upheld in these regions, are being fully practiced as they had been established by their masters.
Ani takana shingi duglayan tende tarbare kainsena je gendurin chengi je shabage ani thondru gi chwenjung nawe gen seng dinala ani karsa dinal tishu nge dome tugu solder khar ingengi dujin jungkung matu gyaso ngada heruka pal Shakyashiri tungdu loben malam rapsang loben ngodup loben tenzin gyatso loben sonum sangbo so ngakpe chegel miwang uyang wangchu ki jinda jebe kadin le wangnun gyu topchen namki rangluk ningbo damga samu gangge kyunsang nangmen jong dir changne dugi tembe pesal lar yang chechir gebe gochu ba ins chen dustin asha tende indu chambala ti ta ngema meba mare ti ne chi nyamgu chungwa ina kande ina ta kangdar tine chene je ta hodang shundung ni jagi ani damga gi gyubati ani chuchi dun debati ti kam chungwa mendro samsam rabu resha khong sungya na jena okay so shall I say so therefore even in Bhutan by J Gendun Chen has mentioned in Chunjung na karla
Dharma history.
In his Dharma history, has mentioned that due to Shakyashiri, that the essential part of Drukpa practices, such as 6 yoga and so on, has passed down to his disciple, which I mentioned the names. Through that, it has been, how to say, came down to Bhutan. So therefore, still. Those practices are able to practice in Bhutan. So therefore, from that time, both the Lhodruk and Shungdruk has came into one single lineage of essential practices. Tene ta dudusche digde nas normal so tene nanjor gi wangchu tene nanjor gi wangchu tene Drukpa Shakyashiri gi ani tene dungse niba kyabje abru muche ngawang ishi rangro shungen di chilo chidong gu jangap chung ngagui lola ani gelden nyam ta bela ngiro ta kasa tujeng gi wala tene ani asam gyune chenjul du phet ani gangdo lam banya sing jo sari banya I think is a kind of a family tigi ani shuro nangs chen shu tel shu ne ani del kan tanda karsa takzi retreat sesela shubare del shune ani retreat dela ani kyabji tanda dewarse pa kyabji taksing rimbuche chodang ani lobin samdup singen khong nabani zebegi ani loma mangbuchi la ya chachen churul so be damga tsabares.
Then eventually in 1959, in the course of the upheavals in Tibet, the second son of Drukpa Shakymuni, who was none other but the master Abu Rinpoche, came via Assam eventually to Sikkim, to Gangtok, where he was hosted by the Bamyak family. They asked him to remain, they asked him to spread and disseminate the teachings of the Drukpa lineage, which he did, and particularly one of his students known by name of Lopensang Drup,
Draksing Rinpoche.
Draksing Rinpoche, by the name of Draksing Rinpoche, became instrumental in the spreading of these teachings of the Drukpa lineage, etc., in that particular region of Sikkim.
Sikkim je tine da karsa kashala tine nubur muche ki loma tin zugi ta tine shudu sen shu hagoni ani den shu ni kashala febare tine kashala ya tine chegi chachen shudu so be damga ta jam na bare.
Again, in the region of Kasha, these teachings and practices were then further spread predominantly through the students of Lama Norbu, who then proceeded to practice and disseminate these traditions and transmissions further.
Tatine ani dije ani tine ladala tanar rimbuche da chegel ladagi gelbo gemba kunsang nam gel sengenda tine mimabuji ki ani phenaro nang chene shubingola ani ladal phep tine ladal phep ne kyang gomba himi dang chamrengi ki zöbegi tine tida thamjela ani chige 강라 강도기 되니 지기 왕롱 두베가 왕롱 차상 되니 가실래 지기 차전 가실 때니 가실래 차전 주로 차상도 잡았는데 나네 아니 지금 두베 템바게 세페오레스.
Then eventually through the offices of Tana Rinpoche and the then king of Ladakh, the Chögyal, the Dharma king of Ladakh, Abu Rinpoche was also invited to come to Ladakh, where he then proceeded to travel to, and where he eventually also, on the request of these masters and the royal family of Ladakh, was able to give the full transmissions of all the various teachings and transmissions of the Drukpa lineage, in particular of the 6 doctrines of Naropa, and he was able to establish a great many practice centers for these transmissions and practices, particularly according to the tradition of the Drukpa lineage there in Ladakh.
다 나달 페베 나달 페네tin 공기 송거래 다 나달 용니 템바 나랑 주치기 질 상계기 템바다 지라 아니 루베 템바들 펜토 마투나 아니 나달 용니 펜도스가 용이 가이 중요 말레스 디네 인주 잠발라 아니 다 나마 티베르 제 구공맥이 아니 지기 마차잡 꾸르니 가르사 라망 아왕 연된 생에 질 마차잡 꾸니 캐나파게 나달 친니 아니 두디 쪽쇼 송거래 루베데 루데 하고 그러와 retreat center 숙쇼스람나 코랑 쭉 두요 말에 제자다 아버님 책이더니 건 벤중 얘기 대갈 창조 나왕 누르고 생겨 지어래 힘이 창조 가사다 민지 제샤 다 딩이라 아니 다 키랑 얘기더니 두디 디네스 쪼고기도 딜라야 아니 소외 등견들 사자 돼서 제쇼스 근데 숭은 나신 코랑 얘기야 디베 제기 인생 당랑도 제니 아니 사자 종종지 피월 땐 내가 나신 이구 생겨 놓은 거 지어래 이구 딘즈기 안에 진다 딘즈기야 아니 소외팅기 표기 인스잖아 켈렌 슈니 아니 두데 단다 고장 두데당 아니 잠드 두데니 두스투니 아니 템바 나네기 봐도 아니 지게 민염 공패 용약이 두면 기아침보다 제니 아니 두베기 템베기 깡도 두스투브레스.
However, when Abu Rinpoche was requested to go to Ladakh, he was somewhat doubtful whether or not his going there would actually truly bring about the benefit for the teaching and for practitioners. However, by the previous Tribun Rinpoche, it had been stated quite clearly that there would be such a necessity, and then eventually it came to pass that Abu Rinpoche was given a small place. He was furnished with a small place in a location called Igu, where he then proceeded proceeded to establish a retreat center, a retreat facility for the practice of these teachings, for the practice of these various doctrines. Therefore, it is nowadays the fact that there are the two main retreat places of Guzhang and Kasbang. That's the name of the other place.
도스래 된다 진다든 탐지기 다다 그때가 나신게 아니 루베긴 된차든데 파르망고 디디가 컴퓨터 생인들 된다 된데 작바다들이 망고 요 말봐 아니 싱벌 그런 거 그래 강나 강상기 싱벌 그런 단다 고장 리트럴 슈다 슈심벌에 상당히 킹이래.
These places were then eventually fitted out with everything that such places require, and this was all done in most meticulously executed handiwork. It is not as if at this time computers and all the various facilities that we have at our disposal nowadays were available. So wood carvers, artisans, craftsmen, etc., were asked to come and to establish all of these various works. Wood blocks, and also carve the wood blocks for the necessary texts.
That he got the Ladakh Goba Segre, Goba members and their leaders. In that Abrumchikiranta, Ladarang Shurochis, Shubere, in it, Abrumchikona, Chikusu de Mare, the day into Zamaldanga, the Saja Tamure, the Trigimindus, the Gade to Samare, the Inayang, Tini, Dojiling Lea, Ani, Gawan Duchen, Tamjaki Chodang, Ani Captain Dojichang, Tusermuche. 나반이 독스 주요하래 등이 지난 속이야 된den슈나 야보 용그레스 딜이야 된슈다고 슈나로 와슈나 페로낭스 슈나다보디 이게 저는 디그레스 저는 아니 아버님 제기 차리나무래 아고사 두서름 제일 두서름 제일 차리나네 다도 캐나반이 페툼나 아니 루베기 템바 찌단 지랄 시다기 아니 펜도기 전부 용서래 된데 야보 용서레스 저는 차리낭 din이 잠디 참수 가왕들보디 된데슈가 침버리마 마신 아니 대간나시 아니 캡지 가수래 나경은 루젠 탐지kim바 초당 아니 캡지 도지창 투세르무 나반이 기장 아니 템바기 된달게 템바 된달 공니 아니 퉁엘 만zem바라 깔렐 만zem바체니 아니 라달 페베레.
However, because the very rough climate of Ladakh was not at all conducive to the health of Abba Rinpoche, he was not able to go there for very long or to remain there for very long. At that time, the all-knowing, the omniscient Jalwang Drukpa, as well as our Lord of Refuge, Vajradhara Tukse Rinpoche, had taken up their residence in Darjeeling. Accordingly, Abba Rinpoche requested them in a letter to please take care of the affairs in Ladakh, and if they would be able to travel there and to further establish the Drukpa lineage by way of teaching and imparting transmissions, etc., for the sake of followers, that this indeed would bring about great benefit. And accordingly, honoring the request and honoring the wish of Abba Rinpoche, both His Holiness the Jalwang Drukpa as well as the previous Chapje Tukse Rinpoche were then eventually able to indeed travel to Ladakh and do a great deal of beneficial work there.
Then capture Dunser Mucheda, and the Gawan Lujan Kimba Choda, capture Dunser Muchi, Nabani Pagapeni, Ani, Karashure, Chamdedang, Chamdedang, Himigumanila, and Chu Kolo Parmeba to Kor. The Ganasi, Yul Tamjela, Ani, Yama Manitum Mani Ladal, Manitum Beluxi, and Manitum Drupa Luxi, Samare. That the Nesung, Ani Manitum Suyag, Yulsamala Manitum Sugre, Tig Sol Salvatun Nang. And the Nitanasingi, Ani Gun Pensunila, Ani Dulcimdang, Tabatin Zulia, Yanzog Dombanayadang, the Niyarne, Suyala Soba, Sol Satutun Nang Jenny, Ani. Tenechiki to you tembe to you Pandru Temba in Dashing Gabadang. Tini, Danatin, Yuda Yushimbatini, Anita, so Yamun Yaman Tamjiki Kongi, and the Tujikadi Imba, Imbadin around to Shuma Weberba. How did the race?
Accordingly, eventually, as has already been said, these two masters, the Jalwang Drukpa and the previous Tukse Rinpoche, were able to travel there, and they were able to establish various traditions which heretofore had not existed in in Ladakh. First they went to a place named Chamje, then they proceeded to Hemis Monastery and also to many of the smaller places, the smaller counties within Ladakh, and they established such traditions as the repetition, the accumulation of 100 million money mantras. That tradition of people coming together to do that had until that time not existed in Ladakh. However, having been established by these two incomparable masters, these traditions have been kept to the present day. Also, they were able to ordain wherever they went a great many practitioners into monkhood or as nuns. They were able to give them the monastic vows, and they also established eventually the tradition of the rainy season retreats known as yane in the monasteries and in these places of practice which are concerned. All of this, having established these great Dharma activities for the sake of all beings, etc., were established were made possible only through the great kindness of His Holiness the Jalmon Drukpa and the previous Chapje Dorje Chang Tukse Rinpoche.
ngay ji ngaregi pala la ji tora ro shu tang ro chas de ne ti ji khayo la yo ne su re ba tinge da ga slav sha ma re khayo la yo ne su re kina zu ma ke be ne pa ku bare jar do ke ji thuse re che ku bare du sha ke shiri ke ku bare du ani ab garsa to ke ji thuse re che ku bare pa ke du ku bare do de du o de dires.
If you would wonder who are these masters or who were these masters that Rinpoche is talking about, if you would walk over to the side of this pavilion which is facing that way, you can see three large pictures which depict none other but these great masters. There's a picture of Drukpa Shakyasri, and the center to the right side is a picture of the previous Tukse Rinpoche, and to the left side there's a picture of Abo Rinpoche, about whom we have been talking so much here.
Tini kurang aran desa tanda de manali le phek ani chime gu dube ga ses chenda gomata bose or chaga chaga da chung chung chime do yo mare tinde chitab nang tin de la tini tane kyabje singrar mu chi ku goma gi tsube gi ani lada karsha sangar la so bane ani chhe shio mangbu ji phe ni tin tham chele ya chi rang la kana kan do gi ani chi gi ngod ngo shin ne song de chi ni chi gi de ba gi nyem ga wang de ga na shi gi do je gi thil so bon nang ne ani those temas in Namares. Then after Ladakh, Abu Rinpoche came to Manali, where I do live now, which is the kind of a seat of Abu Rinpoche. He has established a small monastery called Chime Dubi Gatsal, and over there, then again, a lot of people gathered to receive teachings, such as Gyabje Singdar Rinpoche, previous Singdar Rinpoche, and from a lot of people from the region around that, like Ladakh, Lahaul, Zanskar, and so on, and he have fulfilled their wishes by the teachings. And then also he has again, he has asked to carve wood blocks, like a life story of Milarepa, and these 100 songs of Milarepa, such as life story of Gambopa, Marpa, and Rechungpa, and Gyawa Lorepa, and so on. Then there are many other books as well. It is still existing there. That is Junani Gigan Kinsigi, then Kishu Kyang Jenny, and it was Jenny, and Temampen nowadays, then Mampen nowadays.
Then eventually also the great master who is known under the name of Gegen Chense, he came there, he appeared at this place, and he was also able to disseminate the teachings very widely. He was able to give a great many teachings and instructions. And this particular place, to the present day, it is a small monastery which had a few monks, however, where the traditions are being upheld.
Tani Himalayan, Ladakh, Zanskar, and Himalayan, what do you call the Karsa? Zanskar is other parts, lineage. It's holders of the Samada, the Gumba Manguchi Gudua. That in the Zamatanga Lada, Tana Gumba singing the other, Tana Muchi, Gumbadi, and Rabjung Guba, and Chichidong, Ngabja, Tukjulo, Tukju, and Chakred Lola. 아니 라다기 결부 최결 잠양 남결 생은 되기 아니 혼루라 아니 겹지 가사 탐탐제 캠바 아니 ngawan 남결라 아니 공페로낭스 네 울라 제고기 도스 나말 땡기 키나 페로낭스 제 디네슈니 땅도 나 땅나야 아니 이나야 아니 잡중 ngawan 남결라 달 페투요 말에 이나양 공에 구섭다고 지라 이 공도 주변나 생기 주시 몽진바 아니 라다 땅니 아니 개분 자완 자면 남제기 울랄땐 되니 단다 여백이 아니 땅나고 말생인데 창답 나샤
Another important place that was established in Ladakh is Tarna Gompa, or Tarna Monastery, by the then Tarna Rinpoche. This was established in the 9th 60-year cycle, known in Tibetan as Rabjung, and the 9th Rabjung in the year which corresponds to the Western year of 1560, in the year 1560, this place was being established, and the following masters of this monastery then eventually requested the Shabdrung Ngawang Namgyal, who resided in Bhutan, to please come to Ladakh to become the Lama of theirs, to extend teachings and ordination to these masters and their students. However, Shabdrung Ngawang Namgyal at this time was unable to come, and as has already been mentioned before, he sent one of his main students, Mugdzingpa, who then eventually went to Ladakh and who disseminated all these precious teachings, ordination, instructions, etc., and so forth, to the teachers of Tanak Gompa and their descendants.
나한테 이제 아니 땅나 군바스 제네 될지 아니 초지 몽진 반에 마다니 아니 땅나 군바 노스 착다반낭 아니 디가 나신기 되니 초지 몽진 발 때니 아니 땅나 군바기 군나 다라다 가사 상갈라 아니 디가 나신 다다 공도 시바나신기 버던 송굴 라소바디 딱리모 세야기 군바도 탐제라 아니 다다 혼족을 쓰여래 초가 차는 탐제 혼족을 쓰도 난게요래 아니 단다 땅나를 묻지 단다 군바디기 군나들라 아니 땅나를 묻지 ngawan 되니 세네 아니 겹지 팀을 묻지 군들네 자진 추루 탐지 센 되니 라달 단다 소신 슈바 아니 두스레스.
It is through the kindness of Chögyam Mungzingpa that all of these various traditions, particularly the practices of the various rituals, the various ways of how one goes about the practice of such rituals, etc., was being established in Ladakh, was also eventually established in the region of Sankar, particularly around the sacred places of Sungkul and others, and all the way down to the following teachers, for the following masters. These traditions have been upheld.
That is dudu chego sare kayasana dujumindu mai kuba troyaji danga dudu labinwa ani dineta ladal tegana singi korzo sesala ya langbur muche ku gomegi ani desa dusiyare dia ani dadi kongyang ani kapja abur muche kundunne ani damga sama tamje shu dine konang gombadan korzo gombaliya losum tang nang ani dineyang dine gonglushira shuktu yamare junjungane gombazo dine jeber de ine dana yangsi dana lobjong nang sibares korzo.
Eventually, Abu Rinpoche, to get back to Abu Rinpoche himself, eventually he established a seat in Ladakh itself, which is known as Korzo. However, it came to pass that Abu Rinpoche unfortunately was not able to remain in this world for very long, so he passed away at a comparatively young age. However, fortunately enough, again, his rebirth has appeared and is presently undergoing studies.
아니 되네 붐터스사 꿀루라 아니 갑자기 총을 무채 고정구바 최기 생기 초학네 양 바이드신 총골기 최대 첨부 좀 겹낭 단단 죽준낭네 아니 때나 템버체베 단다 상당 상심바 독스레 진대나라 지기 견둥기 대 할람 기알학스 때는다 요래 꿀루.
Then again, the further Himalayan region known as Kulu, the seat known as Bumter was established by the 9th Chagan Rinpoche. And at this particular place, the residence of the ninth Janggon Chogyam Rinpoche, there is a small body of monastic sangha. There are monks who undergo the necessary studies, who uphold the various traditions in the very same way.
아니 드네 마체네 아니 그래서 다진네 잘렌다라기 년답소 아니 팔든 드룩베기 아니 시르기 최대 첨부 떠신 종스 전에 아니 이제 도지창 감주 던지니마 고정 둔베기 아니 고정 길건다 고정 개베기 두스 차다바 나니 아니 데라지기 콜루스음긴 제ten 베든 젠두메바 아니 짱다 짱심바당 아니 단다 이제 감주 좀 지기 양시 도컴바 고정 구바 시르기니마 단다 텔 슈다시마 독스레.
Eventually then also in the further regions, further seats were established, and finally also the great monastic seat of Tashijong was being established by the previous 8th Kamta Rinpoche, Dönjin Nyima. He then eventually passed on, but fortunately enough his reincarnation appeared soon enough again, who is none other but His Eminence the present 9th Kamta Rinpoche, known as Shedrup Nyima, and he is upholding and continuing the great work of his predecessors at that particular location.
아니 드네 타신종의 년답수 고팔푸르 사사지요 사자 데라 아니 팔렌드루베기 텐진기 기부담바 아니 조왕 도종름부치 아니 동기 텐진 초당 아니 두구 초여름부치 연등기수 니기 아니 양 델리아 덴사 장춤 종스 전에 차담낭 수출라캉 그 대가나신 두텐기 두텐 최된 되네 gendengi de la soba tsunamni aban labasumgi ani lobjong kalsai nyamlen noyadang teni jigi rana sosugi gyube chalen da manyamba ani kyangda kyangshimba yang de la duksiyore gopalpur Kangra district Kangra
then Kangra.
Yeah, near to Tashijong.
Eventually, then also near to Tashijong in the Kangra district, at a site known as Gopalpur, the masters Dozong Rinpoche and Drukpa Chogyam Rinpoche were able to establish their seat, which is known as Changchupjong. And also in this place, there is a body of monastic sangha which upholds the 3 trainings, which trains itself in the practices of the various transmissions, etc., who in this way uphold the lineage at that particular place under the guidance of Dordzong and Drukpa Chogyam Rinpoche.
아니 드네 타신종의 년답수 지준나 던진다면 대시우요래 아니 고랑기 아니 주메기 군바 던기 가슬링스 제네 주메 군바 아니 페질 주마 is there 50 주마 how many nuns are there? Around 60 nuns are there, in which they are practicing, and studying, and that nunnery is established by Jizunma Tenzin Palmo, who is here. Anitine, Notine, Dharamsalalaya, Ani Drukbegi Nangsen Raba, Tundru Kiru Chimbumbarawa. Rinjempesangi ani chugyu ani dharamsalalaya tene gebji dharmuchi chogi ani chidonggu ge geju gyasumi ibe inal rebel chidonggu ge geju gyasumi lola ani gumbasar dutab nang telaya ani gendungi detsu tene gumba tega rangi ani byogi chagyun sambodeja manyamba jitawa ani tanda garmuche gomba shendun gasa dharmuche gomba shendun shebare de ine dungse nabani khazang del kachun nange khongre ani kasa kidong tapu tashi chölings jene gomba cha tam nangni ani dungse pema chögyap chambalingba chodang ani chambapalden Jambalingba, Tengene, and Tanda Duxjani, and do Jaconta Gongshim Duxres.
Eventually, in the year 1983, then a seat for the lineage that has descended from the great master Barawa Rinchen Pasang was being established by Chapje Dongse Rinpoche, and this particular lineage is being continued there under his guidance. Chapje Dongse Rinpoche is none other but the master from whom we were fortunate enough to receive a brief teaching last night. So this particular lineage of the Barawa Kagyu, which are within the Drukpa lineage, is being established and is being continued at this particular place.
아니 드네 구루 르무체 페마 삼바와 기네 아니 초페말이야 아니 가르사 캡지 지가 초르 르무체 구젠 구바 템바 귤메 초네 아니 지기 양 발루베기 아니 덴사 소소머베데 지가 금바 아니 약타주 겜나 요레 텔야 텐다 템버지바 샹 요레 대가나신 겐든 게타 나서야 로벌롬니르 다 기바티 가산 지가 랑기 아니 차균기 돈 다야로 소 마냐바 두스나야다 아니 다가나 신기 아니 라마왕돌 라마왕축돌지 콩기 아니 구르르 무체기 꾸 아니 하장기 차르동가와 배지 푸디 기알학스 메로 내지 시아던데 단데 샹다 샹심바 아니 두스케나 참아라 참에 두스젠람도 제여베 두스레.
Yet another seat of the glorious Drukpa lineage was established relatively recently at the sacred site of Tsopema or Revalsar, also in Himachal Pradesh, and that was established by the 9th incarnation of the Dziga Choktru, known as Tempa Gyurme, and it is also being jointly run by Lama Wangchuk Dorje, also briefly known as Lama Wangdor, and very recently a most magnificent, almost 100 feet high statue of Guru Padmasambhava has been erected there, just above Tsopema, just above the lake Revalsa.
아니 드네 갸가르 호초스로 봐 양전에 임베 갸갸지쿨 발된 루베기 아니 초주 캡지 다선을 묻지 초기 아니 다시 공도 슈바나신기 덴종수 되니 캡지 아브르무체 든네 바얀 루베기 담가 삼모 말리 버센네 아니 다다 호초 몬고트 세살이야 아니 두규 토섬링세야기 kumba 단다 살도 셴낭니 다니 지기 겐둥기 대당 대다 탐진에 로벌롬니를 소바 펠게 근데 요베 남버레 이나야다 당가라도 탐지기 지가르슈레 고ገል더 멤버 송자 아니 멤버 왕기 아니 캡지 다스 좀 제니서 공부 신도는 세버레 이 닥생 좀 제 닥생을 없어 근데 그걸 쉬면 벌라 가사 강도라 아무리 군진에 디 담아슈엔 디르바 근데 공부 신도는 세버레데 이내양 되니 공기 동세 아니 캡지 사람 뭐 제당 다가나신 아니 케르무체 아니 nga든 텐진라 다는 대슈심버레 되니 공나버 쪽에 한데 디 기바디 마 냠마주 버체네 단다 벨다 펜시바 아니 두스케갈 호졸라야 나라주 두스테 두베데스 디 요레스.
I forgot to say before that at Tsopema, Dziga Choktru Rinpoche as well as Lama Wangdor maintain a body of about 100 monks who train themselves in the monastic trainings and in the practice and transmissions of the lineage. A further seat that has been established is situated in southern India. It was established mainly by Taksing Rinpoche, and it is named Drupji Tösomling. And presently, the present holder of that particular seat is undergoing studies in also in southern India in Mundgot.
Which is taken over by his son, Kyabji Tinsang Rinpoche, and his older son, Ken Rinpoche, and Ngadun Tenzin, who is here, and now they have taken over, and they are really, doing their best to accomplish the wish of their father. Yeah. Tadine kunul legdu. Tadine kunula. Tadi tizue shiramindu karchiwana. Tadi mashune mashubendi mindu ya kashe mashu jene kenzashdwa. 다간들 유인이 다양 유인 수자식이 낭센 아니 소아릭다세 다수르차네 소망사사기 유기 년답수 쿠누여리 개와 고상박이 내려와 딜라 아니 용진 잠배바오기 셀롭 단다 유결 줄고 제가 가서 되게 공을 제보시도 원디 단다 유결 줄고 되게 둥 가서 되게 중랍이 개정이 말해. 근데 이제 군이 줘서 패네 다시 강 금바생에 답 아니야 두베때 맞게 실도 스페 나와 임레스 단도 뒤지하셔.
A further seat has been established in Kunu under the leadership of Chabje Yujal Tuku, who used to be the student of one of the previous Yongzin Rinpoches.
Yongzin Jambal Pao's disciple.
Yeah, so
the previous one.
Yujal Tuku was the student of Yongzin Jambal Pao.
대단한 쉬운데 때문에 경험심을 대가 나신 소망 스살이야 그래서 개와고 상박이 로마 주지 실험 발생인데 양 검봤다 디단다 소망 주고를 파 군다도 때에 단다 소망 주고 될 배열에 홍기다야 단다 도된 경험심보다 고란로 중앙심을 독수이말에.
There is indeed a place in this region of Kunu which had already been established at the time of Götzangpa, and which had been continued by a student of his, which then subsequently came to be known as Sumang Tuku, the present incarnation of which is here presently or came recently?
He's not here, but he was here.
He was here apparently. He has left again.
Yeah. And then tene kunulama 장주비야 선생이야 야나 대화람 선생인들도야 동아르무 책이 셀럽레 아니 지진 가사 용전 주바 시제군 경기 내가 왕원들이 쉬나 버림다 된주기야 아니 단다 리간된 최고로 생이 금바시행나 데스템바기 오레스.
Then of course there was also the great and famous Nama master who is known as simply Kunu Rinpoche. He was widely
not Kunu Rinpoche 대화람 장주비야 선 대화람 not Kunu Rinpoche. Yeah, Devaram. He was also a disciple of Yongzin Shecha Kunken and as well as Shakeshiri, and he has established a monastery called Liganden Chokor Ling, which is also a Drukpa monastery.
What, you just said it?
All right. Ani dine Chidong Gukya Druju Chaki Lolaya, Ani Pöle Dui Gurbeke Jesu, Ani Kunu Jindan Namgi, Denden Shuene, Ani Captain Chungur Machi Kuchen Geba. To the Chugi Gasu Cho Ani Liba Ganden Chogo to Pebre Kunula.
Kunula. And then, particularly when restrictions were somewhat relaxed, then the Chabje Chogyam Rinpoche, the eighth Chogyam Rinpoche was able to come to that particular place to teach there and disseminate the tradition. And at a particular place in Kunu known as Rarang, then a further monastic seat was established.
Dine di Julia Capji Garimbuchedang, and Garhagang Trugu, and the Yasi de Shudua, Garimuche de Shudua, Chonjondi. He'll chill much more. Garimuche, Kuto Komada, and Lagarum Chekuto Komanigi, and Kunurang Mutashi Chuling, then set up, and Kunuteme Tamchel, Temba Jachil Pebanang, and it shouldn't Chimbushi, Raranga, shouldn't pay, the couple shouldn't get a calculate, the name of the Gabanang. The Nichisu, Capji Chungur, Tenzing Gasu Chogi. 초당 가르무치 행견에 아니 발두베기 최대 대신 쪽으로 차갑다 아니 템베기 심마 봐 겐둥기 대쪽 아니 쫄라강 당 데니티가 나신기 구된 상계기 낭인 어딘데 야침보 먹에 가서 데려둔다 샹반낭 샹나 요래 군울라야 요래 데려둔나야 요래 데려둔나야 대전총구 차답나래 데네 갑자기 총구를 무치 저기 가서 초안에 아니 군우기 군바 무랑 동알링 리간된 초고를 라랑타시 초링 사빌로 쯤에 군바 데네 셰양 아니 지기 율근 탐절에 지금 많이 동족돼야 바자르구로 동족돼야 아미데와 동족돼야 이게 동족돼야 소바 아니 지기 딘데기 술 사바톤남 봐 아니 델 율라만 거요래 율라시다 델 요래 그래서 탐제기 아니 sacrifice 좀 마르치 당기래 디 마르치도 다나 야고 마레스 전에 칼lum나니 마르치 참조 제버래 뭐다 뒤다 보기 아니 가서 참조낭 얘네 내가 나신 게 라바 군두를 소베기 틸룽 얘네 야침보 낭네 아니 도저 탐체라 지기 담배 최 랑도르 술신도 나다 낭신바 겹지 중국을 미치 tenzin kasa tenzin gyatso chodon de shubo dagarang re ba kuting giba mar guba tanda chik tanda khazam de shu nang so khong re 다 tenden이 좀 받다 가나 신기 안에 다 간다 양이 겸군 가서 중국을 뭐 쳤나봐 니기를 봐 나봐 니자 dom니 아니 군육이 유려야 아니 할람 군바 니슈자 할람 군바 최종 제배 니슈잠지라 아니 세경낭 등낭심이래
Further seats in Kunu were, and then also eventually in Dehradun, were being established by the previous Gar Rinpoche and his associate Lakatugu, both of whom we are fortunate to have here today, both sitting here right now. As Rinpoche just pointed to Gar Rinpoche, saying the previous one was a lot larger, but the present one being fortunately among ourselves, and Lakatugu sitting here on this side. So we're very fortunate to have them in our presence today. They, under the guidance of the previous 8th Chögyam Rinpoche, established their seats, established various practices, etc. And then eventually it was the time for the 9th Chapter Chögyam Rinpoche to appear, who we were fortunate enough to receive the teaching from just a couple of days ago. In his particular seats, particularly in Kunu, he established the practice of the accumulation of 100 million mani mantras, which heretofore had not existed in these particular areas. And since some of these locations were under the influence of somewhat turbulent local deities, it was the local tradition to pacify them with the offerings of flesh and blood, etc., which are known as marche, as red offering in Tibetan, which is, of course,